And we're going to get into the business and branding segment right now, which is called Business and Branding with Keith and Kristina. We like to talk about business. That's my specialty. And branding, that's her specialty. And to do that, to make you guys treat me more seriously, I think I'll probably just have to do this. Oh, there's a little trick for everybody. There's a
Dear
little trick
God,
for everybody.
thank you.
All right, let's talk business and branding for Business Athlete Nation, Kristina Flynn. This segment we started last week, and it is where we like to share our experience, our expertise. Yesterday, you sat down with me and said, hey, what are some things that you learned on your journey to building your company at ICUC? What are we going to lean in today, Kristina Flynn?
Today, I think we're going to lean into this conversation around expectations because I don't think we have it enough in the context of business or building our own brand. So I'll start here, which is the statistic from Inc. magazine. 50% of entrepreneurs say that managing their own expectations is one of their biggest challenges.
Mm-hmm.
We know that this shows up whether you're building your brand or you're building a business. So when you think about building your business, has this been a reality for you in terms of managing your expectations, both with ICUC, but now with a very different experience of building this business here with this Athlete Performance Lab? Tell me about that.
I think about it all the time, Kristina. I'm always thinking about, and I always like to use the word of levers, more levers and less levers. And John talked about it earlier, which is don't keep putting everything on I got to do list. Sometimes we got to pull things off the list to meet the expectations. So what I mean by that is that, okay, I have an expectation for this by a certain date. That always doesn't mean doing more. And I think that's what we often get confused with, Kristina, especially in business, is that we think we often have to do more to meet an expectation, when in my experience, it's often we have to do less, right? So, okay, so what's the goal? What's the expectation? How do we get there? It's not, okay, we got to spend more hours doing this, spend more hours doing that, have more meetings. No, hold on, slow down the horses here. What's the goal? And let's pull back and let's go hit it. So yeah, to answer your question, I think expectations are healthy, but I'm a big believer. And that's why, Kristina, I don't like SMART goals. I think SMART goals are rooted in 1940. We write them down and then they're so rigid. And then when we don't meet the expectations of the SMART goals, what do? We cower, we fail, we don't feel good about ourselves. I like to go, okay, what's the big goal? What's the compass? What's the radar? Let's create two lists, a more list and a less list, and let's pull levers to get there, to manage the expectations, to achieve them. Does that make sense for you?
Yeah, no, it totally does. I think one thing that I have had a lot of help from my ADHD business coach on is exactly that. Something that I know a lot of us do, whether you're neurodiverse or not, is you look at all of the potential things that you could be doing. Opportunity is sexy, opportunity is exciting, but addition by subtraction. So what are you going to take away, and what are the boundaries and the confines within which you're going to operate so that you can manage your time? Because as a business owner and as a brand builder, quite frankly, we can get lost in the forward thinking and then forget entirely about, okay, but what does this look like, and what do I need to ladder up? What are the could do's on my list, and what are the should do's or the must do's on my list? And let's look at the day from that perspective.
Well, I find that, especially in the public world of business, we're always racing to the next quarter, right? I've worked in public business before, and it's frustrating because you're basically living by a quarter and you're living towards the next quarter. So you're essentially managing expectations quarter by quarter. Often not a lot of fun with that. In my experience, what we often do as business leaders, Kristina, and here's something for your nation, here's a nugget for you. Often what we do, Kristina, is we put more on the list to hit it. It's like, oh, well, I guess I got to add more things to do so I can hit these goals of these expectations of the market, of our leaders, of our team. No, hold on a second. Actually, nothing changed from that Friday ending of last quarter to Monday starting this quarter. Let's just stay focused. Let's pull some things off the list so we can meet those expectations.
Yeah, and managing the
Yeah.
expectations. And in this section right here, we're talking about the expectations that we're putting on ourselves. But if you look at another layer of that, it's the expectation that you have on other people. And I'm often very open about this, that a lot of times some of my greatest disappointments in business are that I had high expectations for other people, or I expected people to act the way that I act, to conduct themselves the way that I conduct myself, or to hold the same values
Mhm.
that I have. And then when I realized that wasn't the case, I was pretty crushed, to be honest. I felt like everyone should be operating with this high level of integrity and how they do things. I couldn't even see their side of it, quite frankly. So, talk to me a little bit about that reality. Is in business, whether you're building a brand or a business, you are going to face that situation of your expectations will not be met by other people around you.
I love this part of the conversation, Christina, because I think business. This is where, to me, the business athlete, where business and athletics really come, crossover. So when I was building ICUC, and as I continue to build Bappel, I really believe that we're building a team. We're building a hockey team, a basketball team, a baseball team, right? I do have expectations of you, or of John, or of Marty. If I'm going to date myself. If I'm Wayne Gretzky getting on the ice, I'm expecting and hoping you're getting on the ice with me and say, okay, I'm going to elevate my game because I'm playing with the best player in the world right now. So I think it's healthy to have expectations inside of a company so that when we all show up, if we're all trying to hit a goal, aren't we all trying to hit the goal, not just some of us? So if I'm trusting that you're putting everything into, again, let's go back to athletics. Okay, the season ended yesterday, Kristina. What are you doing in the offseason? I'm fucking sitting back, smoking, eating pizza, and drinking beer. Oh, so you're not getting ready for next season? No, I'm going to wait for a few months. I, I don't. So to me, I have an expectation that you're putting the time in because we've signed up to achieve a mutual goal together. If you're not putting that time in to achieve that mutual goal, I don't want you on my team. And that goes right back to business,
Mhm.
right? So I think it's healthy to have expectations of your colleagues, or else what are we doing this for?
I think as long as those expectations are realistic. So we talked about this yesterday. You can't expect your employees as a business owner to act and give the same kind of time and attention to your business as you because they are
Yes.
your employees. What they are
Yes.
building is not theirs. So it's not fair as a business owner to have an expectation that these 18-hour days that I'm pulling, you should be doing as well because at the end of the day, the cost benefit to them, both them and you, are very different.
Yes.
For me too, I think that's been one thing I've had to manage are those expectations. I also think there's a reality around you got to clearly communicate expectations as well. So, if that is your expectation as a business owner, then tell people upfront. Don't just tell them what they want to hear because I've often been in situations like that. And I think how I've learned how to manage my own expectations with other people along the way is quite frankly, you can't really trust people. You can't. When I was really early in my business journey, I did a lot of things based on potential opportunity for promises and handshake deals. And on numerous occasions, what those taught me was that doesn't work. Because at the end of the day, what I expect and how I would expect myself to operate in those situations are not how a lot of people would operate themselves. And so I need to protect myself and manage my own expectations and put myself out there in a way that says, this is what my expectations are. And we need to actually put that down. We can't just pretend like a handshake deal is going to be okay.
So I'm going to challenge you a little bit on this. So then I'm wondering if you're surrounding yourself with the right kind of people. So let me give you an example. So I don't know John Anderson very well, but I'm getting to know him
Mhm.
every single day. Right. And within those last 3 or 4 months of getting to know the guy and even see Marty, a high level of trust has been built amongst myself and John and Marty and even yourself. Right.
Mhm.
I have an expectation of John, like
Mhm.
John has an expectation of me. And I'd say that it hasn't been spoken about, but there's this unwritten, even Marty, right? Because we all know what we're doing. We all know we're trying to achieve a goal. And I think that there's a trust and a belief in each other. Look what happened on today's show, because we've put the time into communicating with each other to understand where we're off to. Now, I
Mhm.
guess what I'm trying to say is that if John wasn't drinking the Kool-Aid, or Marty wasn't drinking the Kool-Aid, or you weren't even drinking the Kool-Aid, I don't know if we'd all still be here doing this. Right.
You
So
probably wouldn't.
I don't know if, so while I hear you, trust is an earned thing. I think if we surround ourselves with the Mark Messier, because I know Mark is as neurotic as I am to go win the Stanley Cup. Okay, good. I know John Anderson is neurotic as I am about his habits to get things done, that I don't have to worry about him not meeting my expectations. Does that make sense?
I think it totally does. I think it's like everything. Context
Yes.
is everything,
Yes.
right? So when you look at a situation like this, there's a risk appetite and you
Yes.
can always take risk. A handshake deal is a risk.
Yes. 100%.
Trusting somebody is a risk. So you have to
Yes.
be willing that if all goes to shit,
Yes.
what are you going to be left with? And you have to be able to sit with that. In my youth, as an entrepreneur, I wasn't seeing that risk reward in that way. I was seeing, and
Fair
I
enough.
had expectations of myself because, quite frankly, the people I grew up around always operated in 100% integrity at all times. I thought everyone in business operated that way. And so I gave people that flexibility
Mm.
or that permission. And in doing so, I took on risks that I didn't understand. And it really deeply impacted my businesses negatively because I trusted when I shouldn't have trusted, and
And
I
it's
didn't put things on
sorry. Go ahead.
paper when I should have put things on paper.
It, geographic or a demographic situation. I know growing I used to with Maurice, a couple Midwestern rural Canadian guys. You'd go to New York City or go to these big markets, and we were just the nice, naive Canadian guys where we had an expectation. If it wasn't met, it was like, no, all right, I guess it's how it was.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? There's something to be said, and even Adam says it, which is if you're clear from the beginning what your expectations are, then they sign on the dotted line, then it's easier from then on. Very true. But if you come in with a bunch of naivety and no expectations, you also can be probably taken for granted too, right?
And that's the unfortunate reality that a lot of people face, that I'm always talking about my own experiences with that, with the
Yes.
hope that somebody learns the lesson much sooner than I did.
Yes.
And the
Yes.
impact to them and to their businesses is less than the one that I had to experience and my team had to experience.
So let me ask you this. Let's wrap the segment up. What would we give somebody tuning in right now? And Adam comes and says, I wouldn't put that down to naivety rather than learning through doing. I agree with you, Adam. If there's anything I've learned is just walking towards fire. And when I fall, you learn and you do something again. But Kristina, what would be one thing we would want to leave a business athlete nation thinking about as we're wrapping up this segment around expectations in business? What's something you'd give somebody to hang on today as they take away from our segment today?
I think whether you call it expectations or something else, this all comes back down to communication, and it all
Boom,
comes back down
boom.
to also protecting yourself and your business and those interests and your team at the end of the day.
Yes.
So, if you are not clearly communicating what your expectations are as a business owner and whatever business deal that you're doing, you can't expect somebody on the other end of it to follow those expectations. That is unfair. They don't know what your expectations are. So, you need to be one, clear on them yourself, which a lot of us aren't. And a lot of us think we are, but we're not. And then
Mhm.
two, you need to be willing and open and vulnerable to have the conversation with whomever you're doing that business deal with to say, these are my expectations of this situation. Are we aligned on that? And if we're not aligned on, that's okay. It doesn't mean it's a done deal. It doesn't mean that it's dead in the water. It just means let's have the conversation about how to get both meeting in the middle, or some people don't like meeting in the middle. Wherever you want to meet, let's still push this forward, but let's have that conversation because oftentimes things get really emotional and things we get fiery when somebody is just not meeting an expectation that we never actually told them we have of them.
Yeah. For me, this just comes down to communication. Communicate. I don't think there's much rocket science going on in here. I think it's setting the right tone, having a clear path with the person you're speaking with, and then, as my good friend Ray White says, inspect what you expect. So if you're asking your kid to clean the room, and your expectations are the room's going to be clean, we'll go back and inspect those expectations.
Mm.
And if you can adopt that habit, I think you can. Because if I'm coming to you, Kristina, and saying, "Hey, I have some expectations," it's boom, and then I come back and inspect them. We've set some clear ground here, right? There's no ambiguity, there's no disclarity, there's no gray. It's very much black and white. So if you
Yeah.
have an expectation, inspect it and see what goes from there. There's a
Firm and
conversation.
kind, firm and kind. You can be firm in your expectations, but also kind in how you deliver them.
That's right. And kindness always wins, as my experience. Always wins, always wins. All right, wrapping it up. Business and branding with Keith and Kristina here. Mornings in the lab with Keith and friends. Wrapping up our show, our 2-hour show today. We kicked it off with a little bit of a hiccup. We had a little change of plans. We were supposed to have Adam hosting here today, but Adam had a customer call up and say, hey, I got to meet you sooner. So I said, Adam, go get that customer, man. Go pay those bills. Tamika joined us for an awesome conversation. She set up a center stage. And then we moved into deep dive around managing expectations and how do we live through the views of others. Mom wants you to be a doctor, dad wants you to be a lawyer, and you want to go end up being a fisherman. That's just what life's all about. And then we went to See Marty Fit Tip with John and See Marty Fit, and we also talked with AJ Zegler on mind fuel and how men can manage the expectations around us. We're done here today, Kristina. We're back tomorrow on Wednesday with Rich Ingram joining us for some conversations around resilience and so forth. And I think we have
Ty Hoagson.
Yes, and Ty Hoskin joining us as well. So Ty's an awesome dude. Ty's been on the show before. Ty's a speaker. He's going to help you guys think about speaking. But let's get out of here. We got some work to do. Post-production starts now. And you and I are meeting with Mario Hernandez later today, Brown Noble.
Excited. All right, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
We'll see you guys tomorrow. We're going to get out of here. Have a good one. Ciao.